Hey everybody, welcome back to Black Magic TV. And today, inside of the yet to be named place we're in, the Black Magic Lounge, I have my good friend, Mr. Keenan Nichols. Hello, Keenan.
Hello, hello.
Thank you for joining me. Um, you are you're just an artist, I guess, really is how I would define you in general, because everything you
Right.
do is very artistically driven. But a lot of people might know you from music. A lot of people might know you from uh, your drawings and your artwork, and then other people will know you from your bar. Some people may know you as a DJ.
Yeah. No,
A Renaissance man.
a really Renaissance man's and I wear a lot
I
of
know you as a
hats.
car guy.
A car guy. Yeah, I come from like kind of a historical Kansas City car family too.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, I'm all over the place.
Um, so let's start with where did you grow up? You grew up here?
I grew up here in Kansas City. Like right. Do you know where Avondale is?
Yep.
I grew up in Avondale,
Okay.
right on the edge of Avondale. My dad and grandparents, that's where they're from. My aunt had a pottery store for 40 years in Avondale, right next door to Bears, across
Okay,
off
so
the
right
street
down
from the
the.
depot.
So for anybody that's watching, Avondale is essentially a tiny town that
Within,
somehow the city surrounded itself around it eventually.
yeah,
So now
it was a little outlying township, and as Kansas City grew, Kansas City enveloped it, but
Yeah.
Avondale stayed its own township. So
Right.
it's this tiny little pocket that's kind of like well, it's kind of like a werewolf village for bikers.
Right.
It's what-
Yeah. Essentially.
It's kind of
Right.
how it was when I grew up. Doug's Choppers.
Right. Doug's
Kansas
was
City
right
Doug,
there.
famously out of Avondale, right there, right in the heart of it, next to the police station. So
Yeah, and that's a weird vibe. But also now there's like, you got Bears,
yeah,
but then across the street is Doug's, and then there used to be that guy that had that gasoline alley place that was next
Yeah,
to Bear,
yeah.
Justin. Um, Now did you stay there all through high school, or?
yeah. I stayed there all through high school. My mom still lives over there. I went to North Kansas City High School, Eastgate Middle School, and my mom still lives in the same house I grew up in right there. And then a little after high school into college, I moved to Texas to pursue playing in bands down there.
Right.
I was playing in bands here, and there wasn't just a scene. There wasn't any scene for it, so I
Right.
kind of transplanted all my dudes there, and I was the last one to make it.
Right.
And then I was there for a few years, played in a bunch of bands, did a bunch of art, you know, worked 100 different jobs, living on my own and trying to, just like make my way and do my thing.
Yeah. Um, Now I think I remember. It was your aunt that was an artist.
Yeah, my aunt, Deanna Nichols, was a famous potter,
Okay.
ceramicist. She passed away a few years ago, and when she did, that next year, she left some money to the Art Institute, and they named a floor after her.
Oh, that's cool.
So the second floor of the new Artist Center is the Deanna Nichols floor at the Art Institute.
Now coming up, your dad was always. I know this because I know about your dad, and I know that your dad was always been a hot rod guy from
Yeah,
his childhood, from way back.
yeah.
I guess really you could say your dad's from like the first generation of people building hot rods.
Yeah, for sure. My dad was he's from the first generation of the gassers,
Right.
in the mid 60s. He built his first hot rod in the basement, in the backyard, in the neighbor's garage. Like, it was all over the place before it was done, And,
Right.
A friend of his made the headers, and, I've got some pictures of him in 1965 using the using the fucking swing set for a cherry picker behind
Yeah.
my grandma's house,
And is that the River Rat?
That's the River Rat. That was the 100% Ford 1941 Ford Coupe River Rat, and
sort of a famous car in the Kansas City area. And then he let go of it at one point, right? And then got it back.
Yeah, like he built it and he finished it up in 1965, and then had it for a couple years and was doing drags and shit like that, and then started having kids. Had my two older brothers and had didn't have time for hot rod and had to get to work and shit. So he sold it. I think he said in 1967, and then fast forward, I think it was 2009, he tracks it down. It's in a fucking field somewhere, sitting in the mud, totally unrecognizable, buys it back and has damn near restored it to final restoration of the real deal
of how he had it.
It's up to now it's kind of down to the finishing touches. I'm supposed to one shot the doors for him.
Right, you were going to paint the River Rat on it.
The stuff, which
yeah.
I was trying to nail him down on that because I was asking him, I'm like, who did that? Who'd you have paint the doors originally? And he's like, well, it was some fella that went to school with your aunt at the Art Institute. I think his name was David. And I was just like, David Mann? And he's like, I don't know. It was around 19, it was the time period, 65.
Yeah.
It was when shit. I mean, it could be
right.
But he's he's 77, so it's just that. Those details are foggy. He was like, well, I gave him $100. That was a lot of money for 1965, and he came over, did it one day like it is his job. And that was it. So I'm going to see him this weekend and ask him some more about it. But
I wonder if you could go to the Art Institute and have them pull up the enrollment for that year to see who was there.
I could probably
figure
it out
because I'm sure there's a couple guys, and Nico would be someone to talk to about that because he might know.
Yeah, I mean. It's a fun tidbit. I could have it all fucked up, but it is a fun tidbit. I mean, and it's really only
could be,
worth shit to guys like us,
right?
A
lot of people don't know that about David Mann is that he was from Kansas City. They perceive him as being from California, but he was from here, and this is where between him, the guys in the El Foresteros, and people like Jim Green, a lot of what people consider choppers, the original form of them was really formulated here. The same thing with car things. There was, there's people like the Povemeyers, Ed Roth used to stay at their house.
Oh yeah,
because they were all old friends from back in the World of Wheels days, which is coincidentally this weekend is World of Wheels. But yeah, that would be
the lineage is there laterally across the board. Whether it's you're looking at El Mosteros and White Widow, or if you're looking at Gassers and Redbone Headers and stuff like that. That's all Kansas City shit. And
Weld Wheels was here.
David Mann was he was putting it down.
Right, and he didn't end up. I mean, he was all over the Midwest before he ended up in California.
Well, we'll see. I'll fucking try to nail old John Nichols, the River Rat, down on it this weekend when I see him.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We need to. It'd be cool to come out there and do a piece on your dad's car.
We should totally go out there. He's just coming he had a rough couple years. He went in to just get his heart checked out, and they're like, yeah, we're going to keep you here, and you're going to get a quintuple bypass.
Yeah. That happened to Eric, too.
Yeah. And then he did that, and then since then he had both knees done. So he's really coming off a hell of a time, but he's he's about to be fully torqued and
ready to roll.
Hell on sneakers.
Yeah.
So hopefully this summer
back at it.
Hopefully
he's
going
to
be out there wrenching real hard.
Yeah, and before we get in, I guess this would start back too with yours. Did art come first as a kid, or was it music first? Because Keenan is a tremendous guitar player and he's played in really bitchin' bands. Um, but you're also like an insane artist, and like you do these illustrations and this like tech
Yeah.
stuff that like
Yeah.
is like it's real wild that you excel at almost everything you do, and I wonder if that's
Well,
from the
I'm glad that it
artistic.
looks that way from outside looking in, because inside I'm
Well,
like
we all
everyone
feel
else.
that
I'm like
way.
internally screaming like, "Fuck! Don't fuck this up! What are you doing?" You know, like I don't know what the fuck. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like everyone else. So like I'm glad that it looks like I know what I'm doing. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just holding on. I'm white knuckling just like
Yeah.
everyone else. Well, it was kind of everything. I came from kind of an artistic family. Like my aunt was like a career artist, so she was really, um, you know, encouraging of any kind of art and stuff. And so were my parents. My parents were like kind of had the foresight at a young age that they put my brothers and I into like a Montessori school,
Okay.
just because they didn't feel like public school was where it was at, and at the time like Montessori school only went up like through the 7th grade, so it was really designed to help kids excel once they got back into public school.
Right.
For me, I was in that like 5% of kids. It was like, oh, we covered this already. I'm gonna fuck off and find the bad shit.
Well, I mean,
but-
undoubtedly, like if your dad was a hot rodder in the
Yeah,
50s
yeah,
and
yeah.
60s, juvenile delinquency
No.
probably is just
Yeah.
inside of you.
Yeah, so like everything was encouraged, and then when I was 10, I started taking guitar lessons when I was 10, because my mom was like, well, when you get to be 10 and you want to do this, I'll start getting you lessons. And so when like had some guitar that like one of my neighbors left over at my parents' house, like after they had a fucking like party or something, and took me to Antioch Music, Antioch Mall, and signed me up for guitar lessons with J.P. McLean, who happened to be a pretty famous power pop guy from
Okay.
the 70s. And I took lessons from JP all the way from when I was 10 till I was like 18, 19. I still talk to him. We still like,
Yeah.
like, if I have any questions about anything musically, he's still like the guy I go to.
Just your mentor, lifelong
Yeah,
mentor.
now it's like, he still lives around in Gladstone, and so
Wow.
he's like, the last time I went, he's like, your mom has given me enough money. Don't give me any money. So like, so I'm like, thank you. Like I'm like, so
Yeah, he's
and
like,
so he's still a guy in my life, and big
He's-
huge influence.
he's like,
but
it's been 30 years, dude. We're
no,
just
I mean, he
friends.
was a huge power pop guy, and then he like, we had some similarities when he was a kid. Once he graduated, he moved to Texas. And 2 days later, he was opening up for John Lee Hooker and his son at Mother
Oh,
Blues
wow.
in Dallas, and was like all over the place as a musician. But yeah, lifelong mentor, fucking hilarious.
What and also, I mean, that kind of knowing that about the person that taught you music kind of explains maybe some of like what you do, where that comes from. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you're definitely very punk rock, very rock and roll.
Yeah.
But to know that like you learned guitar from a dude that was like a power pop guy from the 70s,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah, and he was like, and just my nature of doing or learning anything, like that's why like school wasn't necessarily like my shit, like up through college.
Right.
It's because I'm just interested in getting the specific knowledge. And
Yeah.
not all the fucking bullshit that goes around it,
Right.
like tests and paying loans and all that shit. So like, okay, if I can like learn this, turn it into another tool I put in my toolbox. That's how I look at like
right.
every avenue in art and music and creativity in general. So that's kind of like, and he embraced that. So like, I'd go in there one week and I'm like, I want to learn classical, and then go in there next week, I'm like, I want to learn this Metallica song. Go in there the next week, I'm like, and he was down for it. You
Yeah.
know? And so like, and that's what he did. I mean, back in
Right.
the day, I mean, before the internet, you went and took lessons from somebody, and that was his life, was
Right.
teaching. I'm like, when Eddie Van Halen died, I was like, yo, JP, how many times do you think you've taught someone fucking Eruption. He's like, oh, fucking thousands of times.
Yeah.
There was one kid, he was like kind of autistic, and like that's all he could play, note for note. Eruption. Tried to teach him anything else, fucking nothing. And I'm like, so he's just like a wealth of fucking like hilarious shit in himself.
But also one of those guys who can just play whatever.
Oh yeah, I'd be like, hey, I want to like transpose this. Like there was a time in Dallas where I took a gig playing lead guitar in a production of Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and it was kind of like, it was a big deal production where like, you know, in the last minute they slapped down the score and they're like, kind of want you to know this. And so I kind of like kind of like self-taught with JP and shit. I don't sight read or anything like that. And I ended up coming up here like a week before it started. And while I was here, I was like, hey, can you go through this with me? And he's like, yeah. And we like hammered out any of the fucking rough spots where it just like put me at ease, where I like ended up going and doing it and shit. The production for the whole thing won an award that year, but like going into it, I was like nervous as shit because, you know, I got slapped a fucking score of music.
Yeah.
And they were like,
and you're like,
we kind of want these solos. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. Oh, I can't just listen to the record and play the song?
But JP still, like, you know, and that was like, you know, middle of my career.
Right.
Like, where he just fucking helped me out, gave me some shit, but helped me out about it, you know.
What was the first band you had? Was that here?
Yeah, I was in a couple bands.
I guess, well, we've all had bands.
Right,
like,
right.
What was the first band that
first real
played shows?
The first real band, I mean, I sang in a couple like punk bands where, you know, it was like short-lived, but then I started this band with a couple friends called the Reverberockets, and we were kind of like Rocket from the Crypt meets the Devil Dogs, you know? Like, we were about wearing suits and looking sharp, but we were playing like Chuck Berry, like 3-chord, you know, stretch rock and roll and shit. And that just wasn't happening here in the 90s and shit. It was very like jam bandy alternative and ska-ish here then.
That hadn't caught on yet.
Yeah, so I ended up going down to Dallas with a buddy of mine to pick up a van from, he had a parent that lived down there, and we went down there and picked up the van, and we ended up going out to the Orbit Room in Deep Ellum, and I was just like, holy fuck, there's a whole scene of bars down here where everything's happening. Punk bands. I went
rock
like the
and
first
roll.
weekend I was there, I saw the Mullins, I saw like Candy Snatchers play, like all these crazy fucking rock and roll bands, and I was like, it came back and I was like, that's where we got to be. And so we figured it out and eventually moved down there, and we were together a few years, and then it fucking, you know, just like everything, drugs and alcohol kind of fucked it up. And then I moved on to another band, and then took jobs working on tours and bartending. I've bartended for 24 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first band, the Reverberockets.
Okay. And then what year did you come back to Kansas City?
Shit.
I mean, when I met you,
I'm hard on my own memory of years. I remember everybody's birthday and like, you know, like years of cars and shit.
I know that
like,
when I met you,
I think it was, I came back here in
like
2006.
Okay.
Because I came back here to visit one year for Christmas, and that's when I met my wife Venus.
Yeah.
And she was living here, and we met, and we've been together ever since. And I did 2 years long distance living in Dallas before I moved back. But then once I moved back here, I think I was coming back and forth, you know, like 2005, and then 2006 I moved back.
Okay. Yeah, because I graduated high school in 2002. And then immediately, like, I was already down here, though. Because when I was, like, 17, I worked for 16, 17. I worked for Jeff Fortier for Piper in Lawrence. So I had this, like, weird thing where, like, I didn't even know what, like, normal high school life was. Because when I left high school, I had, like, 2 friends. And they only went like our senior year. I went the first half of the day because I worked at Jiffy Lube the second half. They went the second half of the day because they were all going to tech school in the morning. And it's like when I left high school, there was no high school for me. It was like
Right.
hanging out with Skins and
Yeah.
punk rockers and Lawrence. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
same way. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, you really had to fucking want it and search it out. And there was a couple good spots in town. Like there was Java Gaia, David Ford's original spot
Yeah.
down on Southwest Boulevard, which is Tejano Nights or whatever now. And it was like a crazy coffee shop. And then it was only around for a couple years and it closed down. And then there was the Rumba Box down on McGee. It was like an all ages punk spot.
Cosgrove was way into the Rumble
Yeah.
Box.
Yeah, and that was back when downtown was really fucking dangerous. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to give you an idea, they've demolished that whole fucking area. It's a park now.
I
They
remember
tore all the
when-
buildings down because it
Yeah.
was just. I mean, it's like
It's
when
so
you
fucked
think
up.
of like Escape from New York style down. Like
Yeah.
that's what it was like. Like, don't take the elevator ever.
I remember when there used to be that Buddy's Timeout.
Yeah.
That's where the Sprint,
Oh, yeah,
where they
yeah,
put
yeah.
the Sprint Center.
Oh, yeah.
And then next door to it is where the Stray Cat first started. And I would have been like 17, 18. And my sister, her boyfriend at the time, Justin, used to take me. They would take me like, I was always like a big ass kid.
The Stray Cat. I remember I saw my wife's band played there
Yeah.
like one time when I came to visit.
And those guys still do like media shit, and they're on Broadway now, like down off like 17th.
shit.
I saw it one night. I was like, what the hell? But I remember like we used to be able to go to that. It was a gay sports bar owned by a former drag queen. And then we would go in there and drink underage.
Yeah.
And then
The stage was all crazy in there too. Like
Yeah,
the
it was
drum
like-
riser was
It was
like
like right
fucking 8
against
feet
the
tall and
windows,
shit.
and
Like,
yeah, it was weird. And half the time the shows got canceled for some reason. But I remember that being sketchy down there too. And then the El Torion was around.
El Torion, yeah. And then there was like a couple summers in high school for me where it was the outhouse was the only thing.
Yeah.
Like we were driving out to the outhouse like fucking Friday, Saturday, outhouse.
See, and I just missed being able to go to there. It was like I was like right on the cusp.
Yeah.
I remember when the first Warp Tour came through. And that's got to be like 95, 96, 97, something like that. And my sister and all her friends were going, and I had my tonsils out. And the day of the show, I was telling somebody about this last night that I was brushing my teeth and I busted the stitches out. And my mom had to take me to the ER, and they like cauterized. They like cauterized the wound with like a welding rod in my. And I was just like so bummed because here's everybody else going to see. You know, at that time it was like Rancid, No Effects,
Right.
Dropkick Murphys, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and you're like 13. I'm like 13 years old. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like this sucks.
Total ripoff.
Yeah, but they all brought me back all the free CDs because the old guys were like, I already have all this. And I don't want the one that's stamped promo copy on it. So my whole life, most of my CDs all had like, they had these like promo copy stamps on the booklets. It's like, what the fuck?
Good old Warped Tour.
The good old Warp Tour. Yeah, I went to Sister Ann's the other day and got Zach had taken up like all the Gadgets records he still had from when they reissued the first album, and I bought one of those. They're like, "Why are you so into this?" I was like, "Because I used to go to G Coffee, man. This is like one of the first like times I realized." Like, I didn't know shit. I grew up in Bonner, and when I was in high school one year, we got to write the last issue of the paper because all the seniors were already gone. So they let me, like, for this, like, media class I had, and I got to, like, do music reviews. And I reviewed Cretin 66, Burning Rubber Out of Hell's Garage. And, like, when I was a kid, I didn't know... To me, that was, like, the biggest band in the world, right? Like, I bought this autographed copy of that CD at CD Warehouse on Metcalf or on Quivira, and like then like years later, like Mikey's in my band, and it's always been like the most surreal thing because I'm like, and I told him, I'm like, dude, you know, like when I was like 16, I thought you were like the coolest dude, and I had no idea you were just like some truck driver that lived in Kansas City. Like,
It's so weird how it works.
It's crazy.
We're all just a bunch of good dudes.
Yeah. But also, like when you're talking about the rock and roll, it's also wild that like you moved away,
Yeah.
and then that type of rock and roll was essentially.
Yeah, it was around the corner.
It was
here,
like you were just like
yeah.
ahead of the curve because
Yeah.
you had Last of the V8s, which, again,
Yeah.
there's your wife on the cover of that
Yeah.
album. You know, you have the Throttlers, Federation of Horsepower, Cretin, like all this shit that just like happened, and that's what I was like turning 18 and being able to like. I'm at like the next like. There's so many bands I was just like this close to being able to see, but at the time it was 21 and over everywhere, you know. So I never got to see the Cramps because that was like the only times they played. It was like 21 and over.
Right.
It's like, fuck, man. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What do you is now when you moved back? You were in the Architects.
I moved back here, and then I was just when I moved back here, I wasn't playing at the time, and I had just been working on tours. I was actually working sponsorship side on Warped Tour and another tour called Taste of Chaos, where I worked for Vans, and then I worked for Epitaph Records, namely Hellcat, the punk side.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of in that zone where I was just like career tour, like crew touring, and I kind of fell in with those dudes. They didn't have, I didn't have any band shit going on, and they were going out on like little weekend stuff here and there. So I just started jumping in with them and like going and helping out and stuff. And then eventually, the guitar player that was before me, Mike Alexander, ended up leaving the band, and I just naturally just kind of like flowed into the position, and then it was just the right time where we just like hit a big stride of momentum with a new record and stuff, and we really worked at it and really like worked hard and toured hard and tried to like go after it for a long time, and then like as it does,
drugs
and bullshit. I mean, like.
And had you met them? Were they already? Was the Gadgets already
surprisingly
done?
They were already done. We did not know each other before I left town for Texas. Like the River Rockets.
They're a little younger than I think.
Brandon and I were the same age, and
because they varied in age. Because
Yeah.
they were already like
Yeah.
they were like. I feel like one of them. I remember them being like high schoolers when they were playing shows at G Coffee.
Yeah, for sure. Brandon and I were the same age, so we were the oldest in there. But I had like they had kind of were doing their thing still. They had like kind of gone the soul route. We're going the soul route when I had moved to Texas. But they weren't. It wasn't on my radar. I wasn't.
Right. You weren't into that.
Well, I wasn't a ska guy, per se.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to play in ska bands. I mean, there was such a movement for ska here, and that it's undeniable. Like the Boss Tones, ME330, the Blue Meanies. I mean, there was a lot of fucking good shit going on.
The guy from Real Big Fish married one of my sister's friends for a while.
The Urge from St. Louis.
Urge,
they came through with Fishbone, and they played some fucking incredible shows, but like. It wasn't necessarily like I wasn't necessarily like a ska guy. It was just like what was happening at the time.
Didn't the Urge end up moving here? I feel like they lived in Lawrence when
maybe.
But so did the guy from fucking Everclear. He was like, I remember seeing that dude like on the street.
But ska wasn't what I was trying to do. Rock and roll was what I was trying to get into, and that's why I moved it to Texas, because there was just like way more happening. There was more opportunity going on.
Well, and I think that at that age, like now, we all like have this broad like, if you're into music and you play and you're a musician at all, you sort of have like an eclectic thing once you get older.
Right.
But at that time in your life, we all narrow in on this
for real
thing, and I did the same. Like the same thing happened to me with that kind of music, to where it was like, if you liked Cars and you liked rock and roll, oh, you mean there's this band where the opening is just It's has the intensity of punk rock, but it sounds like a fucking V8 engine. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And it's what else could you ask for?
Everything it used to be so much more different. You know, it's like you could like you know, everything's so accessible now that it's like. You know, kids can be eclectic and look however the fuck they want and have a knowledge of all types of music. But shit, back in my day, your day, that's like you went to the mall, you're like, all right, the goth kids, fucking jocks, thrash dudes, punk guys. It was that separate. It was that like.
Well,
separated.
even with music, there was no.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking pre-internet, pre-cell phone, to where if I went to the record store and there was the. Here's the Federation of Horsepower, or here's Skank and Pickle.
Yeah.
And at one time, when 13-year-old Tyler had been like, well, let me try to Skank and Pickle.
Right.
But 18-year-old Tyler's like, I think I'll take the one with the horsepower in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you just knew when you saw that helicopters, the lettering of the helicopter. If anything had the Misfits letters on it, you were like, I'm probably going to like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even now, you can't judge.
Oh, it's so mixed up
not
now,
to say you should judge anyone, but you used to be able to know, like, if you saw a cat wearing a Misfit shirt and he has, colored hair, you'd be like, oh, yeah, you're my guy. Wherever I'm at, if I'm at some weird place, like, oh, you're the one guy that likes the same stuff as me.
Yeah.
Like, so
that's what I'm saying. It used to be very compartmentalized, you know. Now it's very, like, everything's gray area and mixed, you know. Which is good. Which is good. I'm like, and that's what, like, when I was still DJing and Spotify came into the mix, it made it to where I could really kind of like mix new and old shit together. To where I'm like, well, you know, what we're going for is familiar favorites. You know, like, is it good? Then that's what plays, and that's what you know. That's the timeless aspect of it. So. In a way, I love that it's completely mixed and people can like find music that way now. Just because, I mean, a lot of times by nature, old cats like us will be like, well, my day, you had to really fucking want it. You had to go looking for it. That doesn't necessarily make it.
That wasn't better.
That doesn't make it better.
That wasn't better.
No.
I didn't find out about things till way later.
Like having to buy a whole record of something that sucks for one fucking song, or like no.
Or you bought like the new Bouncing Souls record because you're like, I like the last one, and you're like, yeah, they really went for something different here, huh, guys? like it's weird because there's bands like, if you like the Ramones and you like the Misfits, like I feel like there's something in your brain that like, not to say I don't want you to do something different. But I don't need you to start writing power ballads. Like, just keep playing rock and roll.
No, I mean I get the variation, and there's some bands where it's like every album's kind of different, and I respect the fuck out of that because that makes it for a great live show coming down the pipe. You know, like Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
Oh yeah,
they're one of those bands like that. Every album is so fucking different, but like when it comes down to live, they're playing like 2 or 3 fucking great songs from every record, and it's fucking hitting. So I respect that, and you know, there's
like Danzig. It was always like. Am I gonna like the new Danzig?
Yeah,
is
like
Danzig 3 good? Like that's always a question.
Well, I will tell you, yes.
Yes, no, I do like Danzig 3.
I'm a fucking
Danzig
huge
4
Danzig
might
fan,
be. He started getting weirder, but that's what happened.
It started getting weird after How the Gods Kill, for sure.
But on the Spotify thing, I also love it. And like audiophile cats that we both know will look at me and be like, I can't believe you. I'm like, dude. There's like cats today that have bands that I really enjoy. And I'll be like, why isn't your music on Spotify? And they just look at me like, dude, it's got to, you know, I'm like, it's not cool to like put it out there for literally I said, Dan and Keenan and all of them made a fake record for fun of a fake band that they all have, and they call it fake band. They put that on Spotify, and this kid's like, I don't see the point. I'm like, dude, you go on tour. Like, do you want 10 people to hear your music, or like literally everyone in the world? And I think for a creator, it's like it'd be like me making these interviews and then putting clips on Instagram and never uploading the thing to where people can watch them.
Yeah.
It's like, what would be the, what's the, I could just sit here and have this conversation with you.
What's the point? I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think everybody has kind of like weird expectations of entertainment and music. And then they also have like a false reality of what the music industry is really about. And no one's fucking getting paid.
Yeah.
No one's ever gotten paid. And like, that's really the fucking truth of it. Unless like you're out there like playing big fucking shows and you're getting most of your t-shirt money. That's really where motherfuckers are getting paid off of performance and then that stuff. But then again, at the end of the day, most of the time, if you're a big band, the label owns the merchandise too. So like, like you're not getting that.
And there's like, what, you know, we can name the bands on our two hands that like surpass time. And you know what I mean? But undoubtedly, you know, these people are living this lifestyle that it's again like the facade has been pulled back.
Yeah, people are getting like, lost in the sauce on the shit a little bit and like really fucking lose inside of the reality of it. That it's like
you're not Motley Crue. That's
all
over,
of the streaming platforms. Were like, oh, we're not gonna put our shit on Spotify because they don't pay artists worth the fuck. No one pays artists worth the fuck. We're talking fractions of a cent.
Right.
Like not even whole cents.
Yeah.
From any of them. So if everyone really gave a fuck, they would pay for every streaming service.
Yeah.
So bands could get every part of it, but we don't.
Yeah.
That's the deal is we don't. Like we'd like to sit up here and say we give a fuck, but we really don't.
Right.
So come off that shit. Music was supposed to be fucking heard. And that's how I look at it. I hear some shit that just transcends time. I'm like, people need to hear this. You know, it's like... And I hope someone's fucking sitting up in their grave because I'm playing this fucking rock track. You know, it's like that person lives because like they had the fucking mustard to fucking put it on wax then. You know, and so it's like
think about all
that shouldn't be lost or that shouldn't be. You know, there's many ways to measure success. I always say, and like money is rarely ever the fucking one.
That's
I'm
not the
for,
one.
So
it's not the one. I was recently on that specific thing. I got into a conversation with an old motorcycle builder, OG club guy, and he had made a comment about this paint job I did, and I was like, well, dude, you can not like my art, but the quality, like you can't speak about the quality of the job, like, and also I just don't think you understand it because you're used, like you paint every motorcycle one color that you build. And then I told him at one point, I said, hey, man, you're trying to make money. Yeah. I'm trying to have it that in like 50 years from now, someone finds that bike and then they trip out and they go searching for like, who is this Black Magic guy? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and people hit me up all the time where like Nico's my source for it. Because this kid hit me up Milan and his buddy has this bike and there's like a little scarecrow for the signature. And he's like, do you know who this custom painter is? I was like, hold on. And I just sent it to Nico. And Nico's like, oh, that's this guy Scarecrow. He's from Kansas. He lived here. He painted during these years. I'm like, how the fuck do you know all this, dude? Yeah. But it's same type of thing, man. Like, there's so much music that I wouldn't even know about if it wasn't for Spotify. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like shit like that. It's like there's so much shit I wouldn't even like. And also, what's the easiest way for like, oh, Keenan puts out a solo record, and I dig it. I can just go boom, boom. Hey, everyone I know, look at this. Right. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that I don't. It blows my mind, like doing all this video shit now, and even with my paint jobs that I've done over the years, like the ease of just hitting that share button and showing, like, it's like we're so apprehensive to like expose, like be vulnerable online to be like, hey, I like this. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I really like this. Like the other day, somebody got in my car and we kept playing like 80s music on like the AI DJ thing on Spotify. They're like, what is this? I was like, oh, I went on like a whole new wave thing the other day. And they were like, what? I was like, dude, I love all that shit.
Same.
Dude,
I grew up with two very like different older brothers. I had a new wave, like full on new wave, like punk, like electro style, and then I had like a fucking thrash, good old boy hunting like,
Yeah.
Bad Company brother.
Yeah.
It's like, so I was getting like the full spectrum.
The full spectrum of it all.
And I have a great appreciation for all of it.
Oh, dude, I just love music. I just love it all. There's no, even like just thinking about, like you're saying, people putting it on wax. Like all those garage rock records I love, they're literally all 45s. There's like singles. So like if they never made that single, there's so much of that old like early what most of us call early punk rock, because it really is from the 60s. Like we wouldn't know anything about that. You know what I mean? Like it's wild too. And then you start finding out like dates and times, and like you're kind of, it's like mind blowing that like now like I really enjoy how like the whole who was punk first, the Sex Pistols or the Ramones thing has sort of like disappeared finally, because it's like, dude, Iggy Pop put out a record in like 1969.
Right.
Like I think that supersedes. Like it took 10 years for the world to catch up to that guy. Like,
I mean, I just like look at it as like seedlings. I mean, they like the fucking punk rock seed got thrown out across the world, and it sprouted up all those different ways, and like at those different times, the way they did, and and like fed each other. I mean, there's so much of like, the Damned. The fucking, like, so much of American punk rock was everyone just trying to be the goddamn Damned,
Right.
Like, would we have TSOL without the Damned?
No.
Fuck no. Like, but TSOL has their fucking spot too, Like,
and then there's so many people that, like, to this day, try to be like Black Flag and the Circle Jerks. Like, to this day, like, hardcore punk kids are just mimicking, like...
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so am I. It's awesome.
I'm fine with that. Like,
it's so wild that it's like there's here's these bands that like, I'm sure they've all survived,
right?
But there ain't none of these guys like living some lavish fucking life, like. But it's like crazy because they're literally
it's like the purest shit. It's like the purest shit is always.
Survives
is what survives, and like the old saying, "Shit don't float," and it's always the pure. Well, might be taking some expectorants or something, cause that come through, but but like even to this day, like Group Sex by the Circle Jerks, it's 15 fucking minutes long,
right,
front to back, and it's still like one of my favorite punk rock records.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
I like Rollins. I met him once when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he spit in my sister's face. I can't 100% confirm that. I have that story in my head that guy spit in my sister's face, which a teenage Tyler thought that just made him cooler if that happened.
I will not call you a liar.
My sister could probably remember. There was something, he was a shithead to my sister. I remember that.
Yeah.
Which I just thought, I was like, oh, he's even cooler now, But, like, Keith Morris, Black Flag, was always like, was, and then To Carry On, and then now he has Off. Like, I got to see Off in Austin when I went down there once, and that was fucking bitchin'. And that dude is like, he's like a fucking little troll, like a punk rock troll.
I love him. Interesting connection. I have an interesting connection to Off. Dimitri, the guitar player, he used to be in this band called the Burning Brides, and I saw them once, and I saw him play, and he had a black Univox High Flyer, kind of like a Mosrite copy, and I had a white one, and I was like, man, if I ever sell mine, I should sell it to this guy. And then one night around Christmas, I was DJing in Dallas, and him and the bass player, Burning Brides, came into the place I was DJing, the Double Wide, and I got to talking to him, telling him about it, and we ended up going over to my house, and I showed him this guitar.
And sold it?
And he spent an hour and a half just fucking playing it, not saying a word. Like me and Melanie were talking the whole time, and like he did not stop playing. And then she was like, "Do you like it?" And he's like, "Yes." And she cut me a fucking check for it and bought it for him. And that's the white guitar you see him playing in all the fucking videos.
That's wild.
Hope you had a hell of a piss, Arnold.
Oh shit. What and we're back from peeing. What do you think just as like an insight, cuz like this whole thing is sort of supposed to be about DIY stuff, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
definitely like embody that 100%. And I think that that comes from growing up, being into punk rock, listening to punk rock, like being in a subculture that we didn't have access to things, so you had to make them, right? Like you couldn't just go on the internet and go, "Hey, I want this." What sort of advice would you give to anyone now that's like younger, seeking to like play music or pursue art? Or in anything that they're trying to do, what do you think would be?
Like you just gotta fucking do it. Like every, artists, creatives, everyone has that like drive in them to like, create the shit. That's where the fucking magic is. It's like getting it out, and like I'm lucky that I have a bunch of different avenues in which I can like get my creativity out, whether it's like art, music, playing guitar, what have you. Like just keep doing it. That's like you got to like just pump it out, pump it out, pump it out, and then all of a sudden you'll be amassing, a body of work, and that's where you really get like to see. That's like the pleasure as an artist is like seeing like where you've come and gone, and then getting to a point where you can like when you like have to reference anything, you start going to your own archives,
Right.
and stuff, and that's where it's like, yeah, well, I don't need to like look for this anywhere. I have it. I've already drawn it here. I've done a study of it here. Like everything's valid. Like every drawing's valid. It's time spent not drawing or playing is just as important, as the practice. Like a wizard must always study their spells, and so a lot of time, like I'll like hiatus from something, whether it be like a specific art medium or even playing, and I'll really just like concentrate like on like thinking about what I want to do, or like how to put something together, or how to like start something, just so, and then when I'm ready for it to happen, it like comes together fast, and that's just how I work. Like I just kind of like ruminate and like have a bunch of irons in the fire that I'm always like turning, and then if they come out for a specific reason or the time is right, then great. But like it's all time well spent in the process as far as I'm concerned, and that's like something hard to lose sight of, because you always want to like, some days you fucking nail it. You sit down and you're like, damn, I just did a hand script of this logo first shot, know, and then the next day you sit down to like redo it or touch it up, and you'll be like, how in the fuck did I unlearn everything I know about drawing? Right. But that's the creative dilemma.
Right.
And so if you can just know that like I said that same thing to my 70-year-old aunt before she passed away, and that was, a potter and a degreed painter for 40 years, and she just like shed a tear and hugged me, Like, she's like, I've never heard anyone put it so right.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like, don't get ahead of yourself. Check your own expectations, and just, while people are trying to figure out whether your shit's good, be making more, That's what Andy Warhol said.
Well, also, I think I've noticed with young people that talk to me, whether it be about, I get approached a lot about the car stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, which I fucking love, because I was always, and you know a lot of what would be my really, really close friends, and they're all people much older than me, because no one else was building cars. Like, no one was into that shit. That was real. My own age at the time. I was in this weird gap where like everybody else was into other shit. They didn't think it was accessible to have an old car, or they just didn't care about it.
Right, yeah.
And so, there's all these people that come to me now, and they're very interested in like building cars, and you start explaining to them, it's like, yeah, this is like really hard.
Yeah.
It, like takes
No, there's a
like
lot of fucking
there's not a
shit
lot of
to it,
patience.
and it's like,
but also like they're so concerned with money, and like how do I make it's like yo quit worrying like it's just like it's very similar. I was just thinking it just popped in my head. It's like just like the record business, right? Like you're not gonna get any reward. Like I'm just now making money, like what I call adult money, and I've been doing this since I was 15 years old. You know, and I'm 40. Like, I had some stints in between where I was doing some other things, but I always tell people like, don't do like any of this. Like, I have all this shit set up, and I've done all this hard work, and like, I would do it all again tomorrow. And I pay again. I've paid to do everything we're doing right now. It cost me money, and I fucking couldn't be more enthusiastic about it because it's like a thing that like if you love to do it, it's never work. But also like art shouldn't. It just comes easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you either have it in you to do or you don't. Like there's commission art where you're like trying to make money and shit and make a career, but that is really a soul suck, and that you're idealizing someone else's idea,
right?
You know,
right.
So, and then like once there's commerce involved, you're really kind of fucking shitting on the idea of art to begin with. So,
unless you're just you get to a point where like a Robert Williams where that guy just creates.
Right, but
and people, but again, the
no
number
one's
of
going
those,
to Robert Williams being like, well, I really want this.
I really
with their head split open, going through 2 different dimensions, and then meeting back up as a cactus. I don't think anyone's going to.
No.
I think he's writing his own ticket at this point. But,
I think it always has, and I think that's how you do it. You just write your
that's
own
the
ticket.
deal. No, that's the deal. It's like there's some artists that like they get that, and there's other artists that like can like just do the fucking commission shit, and doesn't they just got the juice. I'm lucky. I've got creative juice all the time, but I've also I don't like the soul suck of fucking being on the fucking hook to somebody for money, or then like then someone or you do like someone not appreciate your time. There's no amount of money to appreciate the time of doing something when someone like you're like, hey, here it is, and then someone's like, let's go back to the drawing board, and you're like, no,
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
like
that's why anytime I've ever like when it came to needing like logos or whatever, like if I hit up Nico, I'm just like, hey man, just like just whatever you like, know me.
No,
like,
that's great.
I specifically go to people that know me, right? When I want to get tattooed, like, hey, I totally think it's cool that this young guy that I met is like, hey, let me tattoo you. And it's like, yeah, that would be cool, man. But, like, I don't want to harsh your mellow, dude, because, like, I can just call Harold and be like, hey, dude, like, can you do a tattoo? And he's like, yeah. And I don't even, like, I just go now because he knows what I'm into,
Right.
And I let him do his thing. And, if I hit you up for something, I just be like, yeah, just... me.
No, that's
me. You know me long enough that like I don't understand these people. They go to someone, and then they're like, "Well, I want you to do it like this." Like people will come to me all the time with like pictures of like motorcycle tanks that are like my buddies have done, and I'm like, "Dude, I could give you this guy's phone number. He lives in wherever, Illinois. Like you could just call this guy, and he would do it. That's his thing. Like I'm not gonna do that.
I chased the commission game for a while and kind of got caught up in it, and then it was just like I said, it was kind of a soul suck. So now it's just like I'll do commission only for friends.
Right.
Is really my deal, and other than that, I'm just like, I'm just trying to amass my body of work. And that's really.
And I had a situation recently where I was doing a side job for someone, like building his car, and it became a nightmare, and like things weren't driving, and every time I post on social media, it was a message about like, why aren't I working on his thing? And then finally the other day, I just said, okay, I have far surpassed what you've paid me, and you technically owe me, but I'm willing to forego that to like just load all this shit up and send the car back to you because I don't have to do that anymore. Like forever I had to do that kind of stuff to get by. But now I'm like totally just focused on, okay, I'm building that Dodge van and I am going to, once I get Jerry's bike all the way done, which it's getting close, the only focus I have after that is my van. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, if somebody wants a motorcycle tank painted and I can do it quick, make a couple bucks to build the van, I'm interested in that. Otherwise, no thank you. If you have a car, you can bring it to my job. If you're my homie,
Right.
undoubtedly 100%, I'm always helping the homies out. You know what I mean? Even like we've talked about your truck several times and like what it needs.
Yeah, yeah.
And like now I'm on the level of things where it's like, oh, I'm just going to start helping my friends so that, I want everyone to be driving around in old cool shit, So
For
I'd
real.
rather just help out the homies, and then in return, it's like, yeah, one day you draw me a photo or something, dude.
Right.
Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's way cooler to me than like continually to
No,
try
that's
to
where
engage.
that's where
in
I'm
commerce,
at on the co-op level.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I think we've all got to a point where it's like, oh, we make money at our jobs now, to where we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
need
yeah.
to like.
And just
struggle.
and by the nature of like just like art shit, like band world, I ended up I've done a few album covers and stuff and logos and T-shirt work, and it's like even after I like kind of like left the Architects and stopped touring and shit, I still got plenty. I mean, I didn't stop playing; I've been playing
Right.
all along, but I still get plenty of taste of band drama bullshit, even like just through like doing art,
Right.
where it's like okay. Someone in the band commissioned this. Here it is. What do you guys think? And then like it never even sees the light of day because someone else in the band
Kiboshes it.
kiboshes it because it wasn't their idea or
Right.
they didn't have anything to do with
'Cause
the
of
inside
ego.
on the fun. Yeah, because some ego bullshit. I'm like, man, this is like all the shit about being in a band that I do not miss.
Yeah.
So like I like would still get a taste of that through commission work where I was just like, I think I'm just gonna hold off on this shit and only do what I want to do.
Yeah, I still play. I fucking suck at guitar, but I still write songs all the time. And then occasionally I get this like stupid idea in my head that like, oh, I should get the band back together.
Right.
But then I remember like 7 people.
Oh my god.
Like
It's so hard.
of course,
to even
because
get
I have
3
to have
people
some dumb
together,
shit like that, right?
yeah.
Like I always had to
Yeah.
have like, oh no, it's got to be 7 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it's like I think about it, and I'm like, dude, there's nothing. It sounds like so much work for just, and it's again
7
like
people, that's
it's
so
not
rough. Yeah.
easy, even with 2 people.
No,
it's
like,
not easy.
yeah.
Like it's just like fuck, man. Why can't like I like what you guys did just recording those songs with Dan, like because then it's like, oh, this has like.
That was a super fun project just because it was like we took a bunch of different approaches. Like
Yeah.
Dan orchestrated some sessions where like the core guys got in there and kind of like banged out some structures and stuff, but it was like it was like a party environment or whatever on like 3 session days in a row. And then I was rehearsing at Element at the time, just like I had my own rehearsal spot on Tuesday. So I went in after the fact on the session side, and I just went through all the songs and added like a stronger rhythm track here or a guitar melody or a solo here or there with Vince, because Vince was like my engineer, and I was kind of like I was working on a solo record that never came around at the time, so we were just like fitted into those sessions, and it fucking worked out great.
Yeah. No, it's cool for me because it's like a thing where like, because Dan didn't know it, but you sent me the tracks at one point because I had asked you what the hell you guys were doing, and Dan would never play them for me.
Right.
Because he was like nervous about it.
He was real protective of him for a long time.
And then like after I heard him from you, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And you're like,
Yeah.
these aren't even fucking mastered yet.
Yeah.
And then like now hearing it, and it's just so cool because it's like, oh, I know that like, it's like I can hear it's like, oh, fucking Nate's on there. Oh, Wagner came into town and was on.
I love that too because like it's like we sat on it for so long before like even like making it shareable like in a Bandcamp or fucking Spotify that now like I just recently I put a couple of the tracks on like my most recent like Spotify playlist, and it's been I hear it at the bar where it's just like, fuck yeah, that's Wagner fucking singing backups, or this part's Nate, or like I tell everyone, I'm like, this fucking Nate playing guitar right here.
Yeah.
This fucking Dan singing.
Yeah, I played it for Eric one night.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're never gonna guess who this is. And
Yeah.
then I played it and I started naming all the people and I said, you know who's singing? And he goes, I have no idea. I was like, that's Dan. He's like, holy shit. And then when somebody says
Yeah.
it, you're like, oh, that is
Yeah.
Dan, you know? But
Yeah.
Dan's a fucking man. Dan's
Yeah.
always been like he's like one of those guys that could like trip and then fall into a puddle of excellence. Like, because this is like the album cover thing, you know what I mean? He's like, oh, I like dropped this thing in the snow and was like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah,
You know
no,
what
I mean,
like,
I mean, lots of people are just effortlessly cool. And
Yeah.
Dan is definitely one of those fucking guys.
yeah,
Where he can just, like, whip it together, like, pretty fast. And that was, like, a pretty magic session. I mean, because there's a lot of people involved with that. Like, fake, like, you know, it was just, like, a way to get, like, a bunch of friends together to play. And so that's why we called it Fake Band.
Right.
Because it wasn't, like, a real band. And then so it ended up being like 10 people, 10 different musicians involved. And then,
and really, it kind of started off originally when you guys would do all those cover songs, right?
well, we did some cover songs and stuff.
like and
but,
played
like,
at the that Port Fonda.
well, we
deal.
did all this before that. And
Okay.
then we recorded it. And then it parlayed somehow into during Hatch Chili Fest at Port Fonda. For 3 years, we were the headlining band,
Yeah.
and it was the only show we would play every year.
Yeah.
And it was like, but there was 10 people involved. We'd get paid a fuck ton of money, and it was the only way that it was viable.
Yeah.
And a couple times, like, you know, like Quentin and Jared and I, we kept playing together, like,
Right.
in a band sense beyond all of that, beyond all the fake band stuff. So then it kind of made it easy every year with us as the foundation of that band.
Right, the rhythm
for everyone
section,
to
right.
jump back in on it.
Right.
To make that one show happen every year at the Chili Fest.
Well, yeah, and Vinny
Yeah.
was like
Vinny played on it. Vinny,
yeah,
like,
but Vinny was
engineered
like
most of
Vinny
it,
and
yeah.
Jared both. That's like
No.
what I did was I became friends with all of them, and they
No,
had
yeah.
the Bleach Bloods. And then one day, me and Troy were hanging out, and he was like, "Yo, so like you play music or something?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I like write all these songs." And he's like, "Well, just sing me one." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, just sing me a song."
Yeah.
So I sang him a song. And he's like, "Why don't you have a band?" I was like, "Oh, it's like impossible to find people." He's like, "Well, we'll be your band."
Yeah.
And then so that's how I just wrote these simple rock and roll songs, and then Vinny took them and like juiced them up.
He's great at that.
You know what I
He's
mean?
good-
He like
he's so
punched
good
it
at
up
that.
to where it was more
Yeah.
than just like 3-chord punk rock.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, we're in a barn in Smithville, and I'm recording a record, and it's like, and Rory's like, and I hear that thing, and it's
Yeah.
got Skylar on it, and Jared, and Vinny, and Troy, and me, and fucking, you know, Rory was there the whole time, just
Yeah.
getting stoned with
Yeah.
me, and then Rory, like half the lead parts on that album are Rory, you know what I mean? And it's just a wild thing. It's like, oh yeah, we made this in a barn. Like all those records that Vinny made in that fucking
Yeah.
barn is wild.
I'm so glad it exists because like that Bleach Blood shit and the Rich
He put it on
Boys,
Spotify.
like that. No, I'm very stoked about that because that was like a great fucking period in Kansas City,
Yeah.
like the music scene. And you know, when I was in the Architects, there was a couple times where like you know when it came down on me to book a show or whatever, and I was always like Bleach Bloods.
Yeah.
Or
You had that big show because we all have. I have one. It's on in the shop at my parents' house that I have.
the Thanksgiving show.
The one with the Native American guy
Yeah,
on
yeah.
it and the skulls, and the
Yeah,
Rich
yeah.
Boys played on that, I believe.
Yeah, Rich Boys 16s.
Yeah.
Venus's band, my wife's band.
Yeah, it was a good time in Kansas
But
City rock
yeah,
and roll.
and like I've always loved
Wrong Crowd.
Wrong Crowd. I mean,
The Black Tarantulas. How many? Let's name. Let's see if we can remember every band Rory's ever. The Conquerors.
no man. I mean, there is a good garage contingency going on here. Like,
Oh yeah, it's recently some of these kids that have been playing like hardcore punk. A couple of them have like ventured off now, and they're like they played me some new music, and I was like, oh, that sounds like the Growlers, and they're like, wait, you know that band? I was like, dude, we like used to open for them. They were
Right.
just like dudes. And they're like, what?
No, I
And I'm
mean
like,
we're here again in
Yeah.
another fucking like awesome spot in Kansas City music like scene kind of history because I mean over the last like the Pandeezy like fucking put all small like music clubs out of business like the
Yeah.
Riot Room's gone.
Everyone's gone.
The fucking Dave's is fucking gone. I mean
Davies burnt down.
Yeah, Davies like and
I was at Davies the night before it burnt down to see Chico Thunder's halftime extravaganza. Whilst at that show, I may have called them all pussies for having the entire band of Cretin 66 on the stage and not playing any Cretin 66 songs. At which time, they then went back on stage and played a Cretin set. Then the bar burned down. I'm not saying that had anything to do with it, but
well, you know,
it
like,
seems a little odd.
I mean, all shit works out for a reason. I mean, I definitely had something to do with the structural integrity of the stage left corner of the Riot Room fucking structure. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely weakened that fucker with my orange amp. For
Yeah.
sure.
Definitely. Yeah, so it's crumbling. Like,
so I definitely have my spot in there too.
well, and it's also like everything moves, right?
Yeah.
Like the art district used to be. Think about even that. Like the art district here, it used to be full of those weird, like lowbrow galleries, and it gets priced out.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Westport said we no longer want live music, and it's all gone.
Yeah.
That whole area, and it's nothing.
They used to be like such a mecca of fucking
You used to be able to go there
like,
every day of the
main
week.
focus being music.
Right,
yeah.
right. And see, I remember from the ages of 15 till about 28, maybe 30, you could go out any night. It was like right as I got sober, which maybe that has something to do with what happened in the city. It kind of switched to where you couldn't just go out every night of the week and find A, music, B, music that you wanted to hear. But there was a time where like any night of the week I could go, like you were talking about, like the El Torion.
Oh yeah.
Was like a place that like I could go give that dude my $7, give Brian my $7 any night of the week and have a fucking good. And it didn't matter who was playing. I was gonna have a good time, you know. But it's so hard now. A few weeks ago, I tried to go. I like desperately needed to get out of the house, and I desperately wanted to go see live music, and all I could find was cover bands. There's a Bob Seger guy at this place, and there's a Stevie Nicks person at this place, and I'm like, there's literally not one.
Yeah, no.
One show.
It's rough. We're in a fucking tertiary market here now.
Yeah.
We're like in a third tier market.
Yeah.
You know? It's
yeah,
like
and it's crazy when I'm
country.
watching bands that should be playing here, are used to play here, they're playing Wichita. And it's like,
no, it's totally weird.
Like, oh, Wichita's better than us now? Like, this
But
is fucked.
like something's brewing. Something's
Yeah.
got to happen because like in the face of like all of like, you know, all of our traditional avenues for like shows and clubs and stuff are fucking gone. But in the face of that there's actually still bands like playing and trying to do shit, like that's like the real fucking like that's the fire. Like, you know, that's the glimmer on the horizon that there's still like.
And luckily, like, there's Farewell.
No, like Farewell's fucking
tight.
like Farewell's
Max
doing
is
it,
awesome.
and they're like, I love Max, I love Farewell. I'm a hermit. I don't get out as much as I should, but like they're one of like the really only like them. Club Sandwich, Joey's spot, you know.
Yeah, which is just that guy's house, right?
No, it's just his house. I mean, but that like, you know, that shit needs to be there.
It's cool,
you know?
because Logan and Hillsiders originally said, you know, only mellow music and DJs. But then Kenneth and them talked him into letting them do that tape release there a couple weeks ago. Wayne Payne and the Shit Stains. And dude, I'll be honest with you, that may have been one of the best rock and roll shows I've seen in years.
Kenneth fucking rules.
Kenneth rules, but also that bar.
Yeah.
The way he built that little stage thing in the middle, and he has this small PA for vocals. Yeah. And when you have somebody that knows how to turn their amp to the right volume like they do, it sounded perfect in there. And
No.
and so it's cool. And like Sunday, this punk band I really dig called Total Sham.
I fucking love Total Sham.
Yeah. Well, Conrad has a new band.
Conrad's my homie.
Conrad is my dog, dude, which you already know that because I interviewed him
right.
already. But Conrad has a new band. Conrad.
No, he sent me all the tracks.
Yeah. But they're
I love
playing...
him. We're in the Small Stash crew together.
Yeah.
I respect the shit out of him. He's young and just getting after it, and he's got the fucking energy. You know, it's like that's what it's about. It's like some people are just timelessly rock and roll, and
right?
Like he's one of those guys.
Yes, and they're playing at Easy In on Sunday with Wayne Payne and the Shit Stain. So that's like, I'm stoked. I'm like, I'm halfway thinking like I might work extra Friday and just fuck Monday off if I can. You know what I mean? Like it might be a late night. But even like just so like the Whiffs, like Rory and them. I mean, there's nothing that Rory touches musically that I've disliked.
No,
and
I mean,
I'm like, that dude. There's something about just no different than Dan. He is just what would appear to be just embodies cool 24/7 and like is just that guy, you know what I mean? Like,
I fucking love Rory. I've been watching Rory play since he was a fucking teenager,
right?
You know,
right.
And like, you know, we all lose that. We, you know, like kind of like forget about how long we've known each other or in whatever bands or whatever, and like, you know, I'm this guy from DJing or I'm that guy from that band, but like I definitely like. Remember, like we had I remember having a CD release where we had, you know, I was like, fucking put Wrong Crowd on it, and like, I remember loading in and Rory like just like talking shit to everyone from the stage about not standing up front, and I was just like, well, fuck you, shit, yeah, right, like,
yeah,
you're right. I like put my shit down. I went and I stood over there, you know, it's just like, you know, and that's been forever ago, but no, I've always been a big fan of Rory and fucking like. Always encouraging his shit. I'm coming out of DJ retirement to DJ their album release party at the Ship.
Oh, sick! When is that?
April 1st.
Oh, I'll be there for
with
that.
The Heels and
yes,
DJ Keenan Nichols, aka Mysterious
Smoke.
Smoke.
I went and Stevie and I were talking one day, and we realized that like I met Stevie when I worked for Jeff at Pipeline, because all the dudes in the esoteric pretty much all worked shows with us.
Oh yeah.
And so like Stevie and I realized like, oh dude, we've known each other since before we could drink. And like that's like wild. And like again, Stevie, like every band he's in. Like what's better than like a band who's like with a pro wrestling gimmick too? Like
no, it's like the Heels, it's all in the name, you know, and like Stevie takes that stage persona like seriously, like I'm a fucking heel, I'm the bad guy on stage.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's been a couple times where they've played a show and then someone comes from that show to Lucky Boys, and I'm like bartending and I'm like, oh, you saw the Heels play? Those are some friends of mine. How was it? They're like, I don't know. That lead singer is fucking real full of himself. He's a real jerk. And I'm like, no, that's the deal. That's the point. That's the fucking, like, they're called the Heels. He's supposed to be being an asshole. And they were like, it was too much for someone to comprehend or something. And I was just like, it was like a who's on first type of a thing. They didn't know they didn't get that I was trying to like, that was the deal.
Like it's a gimmick. Like, it's a work.
Like no, he's actually
like the nicest
he's a very
dude
nice
ever.
person. Like
awesome DJ.
Yeah.
Again, a dude who just does art in everything he does. The Union Library is cool.
Oh yeah.
That they've been doing more shows, and because Stevie and them use that as a practice space, it always sounds like
they've got it dialed in. Yeah. Before I found my spot, my practice space, I was like looking at trying to rehearse over there, but it was a full house.
It used to house Martin Bush when he was in Hyborian.
Hyborian, they practiced there.
The mini faces of Martin Bush. It's weird because Dan and I realized it's like Think about all the people that worked at the union together when we all worked.
Oh
at the
no,
union,
no,
dude.
it's like fucking a lot of people like laterally involved with that place.
Yeah.
You know,
When I worked
Kenneth,
there,
me and Kenneth from Wayne Payne and the Shit Stains, he worked there with me. You know,
I worked there.
yeah.
Justin hired. I was dealing Molly at the sidebar with Lucas. Like that's why I was in there all the time. And one night somebody was like, "Tyler's got a
Yeah.
liquor card." He's like, "You're a bouncer now." I'm like, "All right."
I do remember this. I had a thing that was like I couldn't like I never remembered door guys' names until like
Yeah.
after they had been there for 2 months.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it was such a revolving door of.
I was also a
Shit
drug
bags.
dealer, so I didn't want anyone to know my name.
Well, I knew who the fuck you were.
Yeah.
But you were working in between there and Riot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I went everywhere. I had a day job I always had a day job, and I'd stay up all night. And then that's when, like, I already knew Dan and Justin because Dan and I still can't remember when we first met, but I was like already deep into like speeding up at that point. Like
Yeah.
I was living the life. That was like the best drug dealing I ever did. I was buying Molly's pre like the hood finding out about it, so I was getting
Right.
for $1 a piece. And then Lucas would sell them at that sidebar for $10 a piece. And I was just like, I remember one night I just walked around and gave everybody one. And Dan was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Shh." He's like, "All right."
Old Lucas. Do you still talk to him?
I haven't talked to him in a long time. Like, we were like,
God, I had so many great fucking just
Rijo
the
over
yeah.
there, fucking.
So many people at the union, but there was like so many times where it was just like. It was like war.
Yeah.
It was like hell bartending, you know?
Oh,
It's
dude, it
like,
was like, it was hell.
you had to be the absolute best to be treated the fucking absolute worst.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And that was a weird place.
St. Patrick's Days and shit.
Oh,
like,
man.
God, I remember one day, like, that was always the day everyone thought it was like a good idea to like, you know, like take Molly or do acid. And, like a marathon bartending shit. Lucas did that one to me one day.
On fucking St. Patty's Day, in the office, I'll never forget. You had to kick the door open, and he had dumped all. It's like he was sitting there, and he just like dumped all the money on himself, and you're just like, "Yeah, no, he's getting paid today, guys. We'll see you later."
It was
fucking Justin.
Yeah, it was a.
Dude, we all had. That was the most rock for not being a rock and roll club. Like that was basically a EDM bar. But that was probably the most. There was no one that worked there who wasn't a rock and roller.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Old man Jeff, like.
Yeah. Fucking
Marty Bush always worked upstairs.
Marty Bush, Jeff,
Skyler.
Skyler
was a door guy, and he became a bartender.
Yeah.
Or he got punched in the face so many times that Steve, Canadian Steve, was the manager. Dude. Norcross was there. Lucas, Ryan Johnson, Josh Allen. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, and it's like the party drinking scene. Like people don't realize. Like I would be on tour and shit, and I would go to like other parts of the country and stuff, and then it's just like, find out real quick. I'm like, hey, do you guys hang out after hours? What's the deal here? And it's like, oh, no, everyone like clocks out and leaves.
Yeah.
I'm like why? What do you do in Kansas City? I'm like, oh, we go to one bar where we can stay in there till fucking 6 a.m. And then, fucking just like do it again the next fucking day.
Yeah.
But some towns aren't like that.
Yeah, which is crazy because like we did that at the Union, and then when I worked at Riot only and Zarbar, like I would leave Zarbar and because it closed early and just go to the Riot room. Yeah. And then it was like literally everyone from we had a dice game going every night. We were smoking weed. We were in the basement. People were trying to steal beer.
Yeah.
And it was that was again another time where it's like the people that worked there together was like
no,
crazy.
I worked there the first 3 years it was open, I kind of laid a foundation.
Yeah. So we can blame you.
Yeah.
Keenan single-handedly has sent so many people to AA.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Part of the business.
Maybe. I've also taught a lot of people how to bartend. That's pretty fucking crazy.
That is crazy. A lot of people.
Yeah.
That's wild. And you guys have the bar now.
Lucky Boys.
Bar,
Still
neighborhood
rolling,
bar and grill.
rolling and controlling 7 years now. It's like, it's like, fuck, we've
That's pretty
outlasted
good.
most of the places we've all worked. So,
Yeah.
I guess we're doing it right.
Right. Well, also probably outlasted a lot of the haters' expectations. It's pretty wild. Like, it's pretty wild to see you guys like take that and like learn. It's almost like a skilled tradesman, right? Like you guys all learn this trade in different ways.
Yeah.
Because like Justin and I are very similar in that like we never stuck around one place too long.
Right.
Like
right.
I watched Justin go here and learn. Okay, I know how to do this.
Yeah,
It's like you're
yeah,
talking.
yeah.
Like he learned how to run the bar.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
he went,
he's kinda
okay,
like
I'm
me
gonna
in that
do
way,
something
like,
else.
He goes and he gets like absorbs the knowledge that like, even though it's like something different, like okay, like he went and worked at,
He learned how to cut meat.
he learned how to cut meat. He went and he worked at farm to market bread for a couple years.
You're
Learned everything about making bread.
Right.
Where
Working
where I'm
kitchens.
like, okay, I need to learn everything about airbrush. Okay, now I need to learn everything about one shot. Okay,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna fucking tattoo.
Yeah.
It's like it's same.
But he took
same
all
but
that
different.
and like now through your guys' combined knowledge, you've created this place where it's like, yeah, Justin, you just worry about the kitchen, like
Yeah, we all
Yeah.
kind of have our spot, like
Yeah.
our deal, and it all, it wouldn't work without the three of us,
Right.
for sure. But like now that I'm sober, I can handle like some daytime stuff and a lot of managerial shit that like needs to happen during normal business hours.
Right.
That doesn't,
Yeah.
That's hard to line up in the bar business and stuff like that, and a lot of GM shit. Like I'm real still hands on that way, but
Yeah, and it's cool like how somebody asked me the other day, they're like, I went to Lucky Boys for the first time in a while, and it was Mindy. She's like, Keenan came up to me, asked me how I was doing, and I was like, I didn't even think he knew my name. I was like, well, we dated for quite a while. Like, he's one of my good
It's so
friends.
funny.
Like,
I mean,
like he's also a bartender. Like,
it is an alcohol business, and I am 11 years sober from alcohol and narcotics now. So like, I do hear the same stories a lot.
Yeah.
So I do understand that, like, I have the fucking memory of an elephant just because I'm not as polluted, but a lot of people people don't. So
she was like, I just can't. I didn't even think he knew my name. I was like, well, no, he absolutely knows your name. Like, what do you mean? And then, but she was like, it seems different in there. I was like, because it's popular. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, when a place becomes popular, if your shithead friends respect you, they learn that, like, oh, I don't go be a shithead there.
Right.
Like, I go there, have dinner, and then, like.
No, it's like we have like people that were like, like some of our original crew from like 7 years ago was like, oh, like I don't know anyone in there anymore, that type of shit. I'm like, that's all relative. I mean, that's how.
But also,
Hillsiders will be that way in 3 years.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Like, Easy In will be that way in a couple. Like it's all relative. You like.
Yeah.
It's only out of your reach if you let it be out of your reach.
And that's all. Like, it doesn't have to be Cheers.
No, it's for like-minded people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we have a 49-person occupancy. So it can get packed for sure. But I mean, if you're there and you dig what we're listening to and what we're doing, then and you know how to be cool, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
And that's our consistency.
And for me, 8 years sober.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I like it now because I can go there. And because there isn't a room full of people that know me all the time, I don't have to sit there and go, oh, actually, I don't drink anymore. Or, fuck, I hope this guy doesn't talk to me. I can sit at the end of the bar and no one bothers me.
No, finally, I'm old enough to where I don't know shit anymore.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm finally old enough to where I don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah. Please, just give me your money.
No, you tell me about it.
Tell me about your
Whippersnapper,
problems.
please.
Yeah. Tell me all about it. But also, I think there's a level of that does come with a place being more successful. You know what I mean? Like you've opened up to like. There's always the people. It's like the people are like, oh, I listen to punk rock. or whatever. You know, there's like they don't think they're too cool for school. You know what I mean? So they're the ones that have an issue with it. Like,
yeah, then that's definitely not your place. Then
yeah, right.
They-
And so like when you see all these new people, it's like, oh well, these people heard about how good the
Yeah.
food is. You know. But again, like we stated, you can't judge a book by a cover.
Yeah.
So just because some dude looks like he shops at Abercrombie doesn't mean he
No.
doesn't listen to death metal.
No,
You know what I mean? Like,
there's plenty of Saturday nights where it's fucking busy as shit, and like the crowd's starting to sway like a certain way, and I'm like, it's time, Nate. I'm gonna fucking put on Ministry, and we're gonna see who fucking really wants to be here.
yeah. But there's also like
the norms fucking leave, and the people that are fucking down stay, and that's usually how it goes.
it's also like it's a different thing, right? Because you guys have good food, right? It won't break the bank to come eat or drink there. You have one television, which is like so fucking awesome, and that volume is never played over the thing.
Yeah, we're trying to.
There's
keep,
no
like,
jukebox. There's never a DJ. The only DJ is your, like, what could undoubtedly be called the greatest Spotify curated by a person ever, playlist wise. So that's what I think. There's like that whole vibe of like, oh, it's no bullshit. Like that's it too. There's no bullshit.
That's
there's
kind
times
of
where
the
I've had to throw
consistency of
myself
it.
out
Yeah,
in the
no.
last 8 years where Dan's looked at me and I've been like, yeah, maybe I'm out of line. I'll get out of here. I don't need to beat this guy up in my friend's bar.
Right,
you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
no, yeah. Well, well, thank you. Appreciate that. Is because a lot of that is like just sticking to our guns. Because
Yeah.
you know, it's easy to chase a trend or like, well, what's gonna get money in here? But like, I think the truest shit is like not being thirsty and sticking to your guns and knowing and creating environment and just sticking to it. You know, it's like.
Yeah.
If we had a band in there and I turned off the
God.
music and then some band just started blaring, it'd kill the whole vibe. And
Yeah.
it's not the right spot. It's just too small, you
Yes.
know. Or if like we stopped and like did a like a fucking open mic comedy night like in the middle, like it just wouldn't work.
It doesn't work.
So like that's the deal. We realize that and know that, and so that just kind of makes it easy. You know? So and like. Firm believer the whole time, like build it and they will come.
Right, and you guys were able to because there's three of you, and because you guys at the beginning it was the three of you.
Yeah,
like you guys were there
yeah,
all the
we
fucking
worked
time.
all the shifts.
Yeah,
we all,
you
like,
made it
all
happen.
Worked all the shifts.
And it's cool now that you guys like don't have to as a friend.
No,
like I'm stoked that you guys don't have to be there all day and then also be there all night.
No, it's pretty interesting and awesome, like being able to, you know, like take care of some homies and have like, you know, employ your friends and, you know, like we have a lot of people like in bands and shit. I definitely get that. The big reason why I was got into the service industry and became a bartender was so I could, you know, like go out of town and then come back in town and pick up work again as a bartender or whatever. So like, you know, Rory from the Whiffs works with us. Tracer from Field Days works, you know, like John Sheezer, who's like, you know, like a big force in the comedy scene in Kansas City right now. They all work with us. And so I'm like, you know, like we definitely get it. And like, so we try to like encourage and harbor, you know, those people so that they can go on and do their own shit. Drew, you know, and then there's been plenty of like people that like used us as a way station is like, you know, like to move on up to the other like creative stuff in their field. So I'm very proud that we were able to like facilitate that and help people out in that regard. You know? No, it's cool. I mean, it's really fucking cool. I mean, it's kind of like a rock and roll Cheers, I guess.
Sort of, yeah.
We're down there and there was nothing around us 7 years ago when we opened, and
now all of a sudden all this shit sprouted up around you.
And I mean, I tell Justin and Dan all the time. I mean, our neighbors are great and everything, but this shit's not down here because of the Golden Ox.
Yeah,
it's down here because we made a fucking cool environment. You know,
right?
Like that's what brought Boulevardia down there. That's what brought what's going on down there now.
Right.
You know, so like it just worked out that way that like there was a deal that like us three fucking bozos could like luck into and make work. So I'm very proud of what we've done, and and like people rip it off or talk shit on it, even better.
Yeah, that's the best. When people are talking shit, that's when you know you made it.
Well, like I tell everyone, the best business advice is concentrate on your own shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck everything else.
Yeah.
Like I don't care. I mean, I love everyone in the service industry here, but I don't know what the price of drinks at the ship are. I don't know what the price of drinks at EZN are, and I don't care.
Oh yeah, somebody was talking to me about like the price of drinks the other day, and I looked at him and I was like, I don't. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Because they and they're like, I just look at them like, dog, I haven't bought a drink in 8 years.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I was like, maybe occasionally I've bought somebody a drink or something, but like also like, somebody said something to me about, I was like, why don't you tip more? And they're like, what? I'm like, you're not tipping enough. And like, well, how much do you tip? I was like, I don't know. I always give them like at least $20. And they're like, you don't even drink. I was like, yeah, but I'm sitting here. I'm eating
has nothing
dinner.
to do with anything.
It doesn't have anything to do with anything. I'm like,
no, it's
you're renting space in a chair, man. Like that's what you're doing.
Everyone has all these weird different expectations of service and stuff. Yeah. They're kind of like, when you get really down to it, are racist and outdated or whatever. We're all human beings is what it boils down to. And if you understand, the differences in types of jobs and stuff and, service industry, a lot of us haven't made more than $2.13 an hour in like 25 years, and we're based on our tips. And if you're good at that and you know how to do that and make money, and like I recognize that as someone who's been doing it 24 years, and when I go to like a restaurant in New York and I see like one server and a bartender fucking handling it, yeah, I throw down 50%, whatever. I mean, it's worth it. It's worth it to me. And that's really what it boils down to. If it's not worth it to you, then fucking don't spend it. Don't worry about what I'm doing,
don't even come.
Yeah.
I always tell people, I'm like, they're like, there's like places I can go where I know, like back in the day, if I was on a date, I used to always go to Port Fawn the first date. Because like Jamie and they'd see me come in the door and then immediately be like, oh, here's some fucking chips and guac, and then here's a couple shots for you guys, Tyler. And it's like they would just make you be like the coolest dude ever, right? And so also it's like, hey, if you want that, it's really easy to get. You just be cool.
Yeah.
And always tip good.
No, the bartender can really help you out in just about any sense.
Whether in any situation.
Like making you look cool, hooking you up, whatever,
Whatever.
I still work on Mondays, and Mondays is still fucking date night. And so I still see a lot of awkward first dates and Tinders and shit. And there's some guys that are like down with it, and other guys that like, to stay away because they don't want anyone to outshine them in their little moment. But like bartender can definitely
set the mood,
helping people out for sure.
Yeah, when Dan was on Monday nights, like during the pandemic, I would go down there and eat dinner on Mondays after work. And it got to a thing, because that was like me and Dan's way of being able to hang out with each other. You know what I mean? And after a while, Dan would start telling me, like, yeah, so-and-so was asking about you. And I kept telling him all, like, he's just here on Monday nights. And slowly but surely, I would see these people would all start coming in on Mondays, And then they'd be like, oh, what a coincidence. I'm like, it's not a fucking coincidence. Dan told you I come in here every Monday. What do you mean? But like, I love it because I know that any night of the week I can go down there. You guys have something I can eat on your menu. You know what I mean? And I can I know when you guys all work now, so it's like, oh yeah, well, it's Monday night. I want to get out of the house. Like I'll go see Keenan.
Yeah, something for everybody.
Yeah. I got any night of the week. I know where I can go in the city and go. Also, for me, people always ask me like, oh, is it hard not to drink? And I always tell them no, but because I only go places where like no one's going to serve me.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I walked into your guys' bar and was like, give me a fucking shot, you guys would be like, no, I don't think so. Like what the fuck is going on with you?
Sure.
And the same thing with like Logan's bar. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna like, you guys were all there. Like, you saw what happened, and like Dan's always like, people
Yeah.
try to buy me shot, be like, you don't want this guy to get drunk. He'll fucking
Right.
rob
No,
you.
oh yeah.
Like,
No, people still like, I tell people all the time, try to buy me a shot or want to do something. I'm like, I don't drink. And then it's not awkward for me. I'm fine with it. It
Right.
was like I unfortunately cashed in all my drink tickets.
Right. Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
My body is like, I had some health issues and
Right.
stuff going on. But once I got fine with it, that's really all that matters. I mean, because when you tell other people, it makes them weird, or they have some existential reaction to where like, oh well, I'm a piece of shit because I like drink or something that you're not putting out there. Like they're like projecting
for sure.
totally onto you. Like, and so a lot of times when I tell people I'm like, oh, I don't drink, they're like, well, I don't drink that much, or I'm like trying to. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah. I don't give a fuck what you do. I stopped doing it for me. So that's the deal. Like, it can be hard to not drink just because people make it hard, but once you're comfortable with it, I think that makes it easy.
Yeah, I think at this point it's pretty easy for me because not only did I cash in all of my drink tickets, like you just said, but I've also cashed in all of my you're not going to go do hard time in prison tickets.
Right.
And so, like, that's not the ticket I'm looking to get
Yeah.
because that shit sucked.
Yeah.
A lot.
No,
like,
for sure.
And, like, that mindset is, like, a fucked up thing of, like, trying to get out of. It's like I'm finally, like, after 8 years, I've almost, like, removed all of, like, this fucked up, like, street way of, like, dealing with life.
Right.
To where it's like, yeah, I don't want to go back to doing that.
Right.
Shit,
Yeah.
It's not tight at all. It's not cool. Being a criminal is not cool, people. Even if you're good at it. I was pretty good at it until... that's how it always goes. I was really good at it until I did cocaine every day for a year. And then I got really bad at it. Fuck, well, we covered a lot here. Let's talk about your truck.
Yeah.
Because you're also a car, just like your dad, you're into old cars.
I'm into old cars. Me and my dad, we fell out of touch for a long time, almost 15 years. And then after a long estranged relationship, my aunt and my older brother kind of spurred us back together. And in that, we kind of buried some hatchets and stuff, and got back into the fucking hot rods and shit. And he had this 1970 Ford F100 out at his farm that was just sitting there that he had like painted. And I started like going through it, and it was someone's work truck that he had had over 400,000 miles on it, and this guy got it and was gonna make some project of it, and never came to fruition, and ended up trading it to my dad for some shit. And my dad ended up putting some fucking crate 302 he had sitting on the fucking concrete in it.
Yeah.
And then just in the nature of how my dad is, my dad is a awesome mechanic, but he's also he's also kind of a Missouri hillbilly. So his shop is like, well, I need a starter. Go over to the shelf. This came off a 76 Oldsmobile. Yeah, it fits. That type of shit. So it was farm. It was farm running, but it was not up to fucking snuff at all. I ended up going through it and just about changing every fucking hose and piece of rubber and starter, and just finding all these old little fucking crazy shit with it, like the heat isn't working, and I finally got the hose off, found out he didn't even put it, it had no thermostat in it.
Right.
And then you ask him and he's like, oh, I don't remember. I finally got it running, and 3 on the tree, and it's fucking been really hauling ass. I got it into the Truck Nationals the last year they had it before the Pandeezy.
Yeah.
And I went and proudly sat out there all fucking weekend. It's a GMC show, so I did not win any fucking awards.
Right.
But, I had nothing but old timers coming up and giving me props just because it's how stock and not customized it is. But
It's
yeah,
a good old truck.
yes, a 70 F100 long bed,
Yeah,
custom, bump
custom.
side.
Yeah, and you drive the shit out of it.
I drive the shit out of it. Three on the tree. I'm the only one in my family. Me and my dad are the only ones that can drive it. Um, it's had it like during the pandemic, and then coming out of the pandeezy, I kind of like hit the wall with mechanics. My dad, like I said, my dad was having a bunch of health issues, so
Right.
his and he's not just like, oh, we'll go use the shop. He's like, no, he wants to be hands on out there with you.
He's got to be
So
with you to
like
do it.
his shop's full of shit, his own shit. So like, kind of was like going through the fucking gauntlet with mechanics after the
Yeah.
pandemic, and big problem is like none of them can fucking drive it.
Right.
Like so it's like you get one thing fixed, and you're like, well, did you drive it? No? Oh, okay. But I'm back to the spot where it sat last year, and I'm back to like, okay, I got to change the belt on it now. I got to change some more hoses. The gas gauge stopped working, electrical. All this
Yeah.
little bullshit that's like out of my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
Like, but
We'll get it going soon.
springtime.
Yeah.
That's
We'll jump over there for a day.
We'll get it in there.
Get the boys over there and whip it out so you can get back to rolling.
Hell yeah.
I like to see that thing riding around. What favorite car you ever owned? We'll do some weird, like, quickie questions.
It's got to be the 70 F100. It was like really the first time I've always had cars out of necessity.
Yeah.
Like I don't give a fuck. Like my first car was a uh, Dodge Arrow
Okay.
pickup, like a
Yeah.
little 4-cylinder that I bought
Yeah.
for $75 from like a rich buddy of mine. His old ass parents couldn't. Well, I couldn't imagine anyone.
Wanting
We
to
were gonna
say-
like just have it taken to the dump. We'll take, I guess, $75 for it. And I drove that thing until it fucking died. I mean, I really
Yeah.
got my money out of it. But I've always just had, like utilitarian style, like with cars. Like
Something to get
I have a
around.
beater. I drive it until it fucking dies. I leave it on the side of the road, and I fucking keep going.
Yeah.
Like Mad Max.
Go get another one.
I did have an '87 Chrysler New Yorker that I really liked. The same deal. I dogged it out. I fucking burned. I like accidentally set off some fireworks in the back seat going down the highway in Dallas, and
That's always a good time.
but the 70 F100, that is by far my favorite because it's like the first thing that I've owned that I'm like, this is for
Just for
me.
pleasure.
This is all Keenan here.
Yeah.
So.
What if you could pick like I don't know, a couple old bands, couple new bands, what would you tell people to listen to?
Old bands, always like the fucking Yardbirds. I mean, for me, it really, that's where it really comes back to is like that fucking, the Yardbirds, Link Ray, like the original, like the true shit.
Right.
Thin Lizzy, probably one of my top 3 bands of all time. New bands, I'm a huge garage rock head, so I just want it to be fucking true,
Yeah.
Like, there's some like cool shit going on with Billy Childish,
Yeah.
like from the Headcoats and the Caesars, fucking, like this huge fucking person in the garage rock scene. He's got a son who now has a band called the Shadrocks. And they're
Okay.
just like, and it's like the Headcoats meets Pulp. They're fucking great. And so it's like cool seeing that come from like that kind of like rock and roll lineage. The Whiffs here in Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like all around a fucking top-notch fucking band. It's power pop, but it's not derived. It's not derivative or like in the face of or like in the spirit of this song. It's not kitschy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like it's fucking, it's true. It's earnest.
Yeah.
And it comes across.
It definitely does.
I try to not ever like downplay anyone because as a musician or artist or anybody, it's so hard to just get anything across the fucking finish line,
Right.
So I try not to be like, well, that sucks, or like downplay anyone like that, like because there's definitely shit that's not for me, but I give everything a fucking day in court, you know, like I listen to everything. So if there's like new bands, local bands that have stuff come out, I give it a fucking day in court. Total Sham, I love them.
Yeah.
I wish
Yeah,
they're one of those bands I wish they would put their shit out everywhere and I would just like let it spread like hot fire.
I've convinced him into that now. He's finally
Good.
realized that that's the way to do that, because you can't. It's too good. It's weirdly enough like Hank Williams III is obsessed with his band.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. And so like one day I got this weird like notification that Hank Williams had commented. It was on the video I did with Conrad, you know what I mean? And then that's when Conrad tells me, he's like, oh yeah, he's like way into Total Sham. He's like,
wild.
I was like, oh, you just need to send him all your stuff, dude. Like, but that dude also, like, if you ever go on if you want to find out about cool punk rock, just go on Hank Williams III's Facebook page, because he's like always just posting YouTube links of like cool bands you've never heard of.
Right.
His son, I tell people, his son has a band called Four and the Strange Band. And it was probably one of the best records that came out last year, in my opinion. And it's like, it's definitely influenced by his dad.
Yeah.
But it's like its own whole thing. And it's like it's like coming from that family, but not having a record company tell you what to do for the first time is what it's like. So it's like this dude that's way into punk rock, but didn't, and has this like country band, but doesn't have a label telling him yes and no as to what he can do. Like he can just they're just like a small band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a great record. I always tell people that. And that the last Total Sham release was awesome. I love that. I love seeing them live. It's just a whirlwind of a shit show when they play. It's awesome. Again, it's like that thing where you listen. Oh, it's like, oh, it's 8 minutes. This whole album's 8 minutes.
No, it's great. I mean, it's I don't know. It's so pure and like nothing's derivative of it, and it just fucking came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
is what makes it so fucking awesome. You know,
right?
Like really reminds me of just like the same vibe of like when the Rich Boys came on.
Right.
You know, around here is just like. There's something in those fucking dudes bubbling out, you know, like
right, which then bubbled out will bubble out to everyone else. You know what I mean?
I love it. You know,
especially there's a bunch of bands like that. There's that Foil band, that James kid that I interviewed. He's in that band, and it's the same thing. They're influenced by people, but they don't make it a point to make that what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they're not like, well, like you and I can describe them in a certain way, you know, but they would never say that about themselves.
No,
you know what I mean?
Conrad sent me some of that new stuff, and there was like a couple songs, and I was just like, he described it as lounge, and I was like, this, you know, these kind of straight up sound like early Depeche Mode, which is good.
Yeah, I told him, I was like, dude, this is like what I was like. I can hear them. Like the first time they did that live, I went and saw him, and I give him some notes sometimes about like, you know, like certain words and things like that. Like, oh hey, try this, and I told him, I was like, man, you need a whole band. Like this needs like, so now they've added one guy on guitar, and he's slowly building this band. Because I was like, dude, I can hear the whole band, and it's not lounge music. Like that's not lounge. It's like it's rock and roll is what it is. And no matter how fast or slow it's played, it's just rock and roll. Yeah. But and undoubtedly like it's cool because they've probably never dove deep on Depeche Mode, right? So like
they could probably sound like a fucking diss, you know? Like, oh yeah, sound like Depeche Mode, kid. No,
but not at all. Like, I'm saying like they've come upon that the same way that Depeche Mode came upon. Yeah, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
and naturally, like I say that from like a pure like music lovers like standpoint, like that's like a good thing,
right?
Because, like, same, like, whenever I let anyone listen to anything I'm working on or recording and, like, I get a snapshot, like a snapshot, like, oh, it sounds like this or whatever, I'm always like, well, fuck that.
Fuck
I wasn't
this.
asking for that.
I wasn't
I'm
asking
like,
for this.
yes or no, do you like it?
Yeah. But it's cool, like, and it's like, we should be less like, oh, it sounds like this. It should be like, oh, I can hear like for like the fake band stuff, like I can hear the E Street influence, and which that only comes out so heavy because of like there's horns and there's an organ and there's this and there's that. But there's like even in the songwriting, there's other weird shit where it's like, oh, I know Dan is into this band,
right? Yeah,
so it's like I can hear where that's coming through, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what's neat. It's like when a song is natural, and it's not like I didn't set out to be like, okay, I want to mix ZZ Top with Black Sabbath. And then in the middle, that's what I'm going to create. Like, you know, no, it's just like, I like these two things and I wrote this song and it happens like, that's what came in this one. You know what I mean?
It's just like...
But then also it's like, I hear Chuck Berry in all those songs too. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's just like catchy rock and roll and nobody did that better than fucking Chuck Berry.
I mean, it's cool and it's like, it's cool to let everyone do their thing. I mean, there's so many... There's no wrong way to do it. Like, that's the beauty of rock and roll and the art of rock and roll. There's no wrong way. I mean, you can be classically trained. You can listen to the shit and figure it out on one string fucking guitar. They're both the same. They're both equally as important and valid, you know?
Fuck the Misfits. I think Jerry still only plays bass with EAEA. I don't think he has all four strings on his bass still.
The cultural importance and significance of the Misfits goes way deeper into the fabric of, you know, American society than a lot of people would really like to really focus in on. I mean, like what we know for silk screening and pop art, I mean, Glenn Danzig is just as important as Andy Warhol in that regard. And then we're not even talking about the pure poetry that is fucking Misfits and Sam Hain and Danzig lyrics, you know? So it's like, people make fun of him or punchline or whatever, but I mean, it's really,
what's cool is like...
You got to give the Danzini his due.
Yeah, the Danzini. I love him. I think... It's so rad that that's a guy that I feel like always paid homage to like this shit that he was into, because there's those songs like on Danzig 1, The Hunter, you know what I mean? Like that dude was really just into old 60s garage rock. Yeah. And then to like be that deep into Elvis, like I try to find it sometimes. They did that thing where he did that like concert in the round thing, and it was basically the 68 comeback special where he was wearing the leather outfit, but they were playing, it was him and Doyle playing Misfits songs, you know what I mean? Because they did come back on that, and it's like...
Well, he's been doing the Elvis show.
Yeah.
And
I didn't hate that Elvis cover.
I didn't hate it either, but he's got like real... Jesse Dayton is his guitar player for it, and that guy's a hot shit, you know? So, I mean...
And he's played with all the good, like, even on those records, like, you know, Chuck Biscuits is on, like, the first Danzig album. And, like,
he was all through there, man. Yeah. Fucking Chuck Biscuits was all through there, man.
That guy rules on the drums.
Yeah. I mean, I was alive. I've been going to, shows then, you know? Like, when Mother was, like... Mother Live 95 or whatever was like the biggest song on fucking MTV. Yeah. Like that's when I was going to those shows, you know? So I'm like, I feel like very fortunate that I was there with the man fucking.
Yeah. Coolest show to date that I've ever seen was Danzig on Halloween at the Uptown Theater in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Cool. Hands down. How do you go? How do you, I mean, I guess if I could, like, at this point, I don't think I would even, like...
I saw him last year at the Uptown, and he did Lucifuge in its fucking entirety, and I, like...
Oh, he played the...
It was so fucking good.
He played a set,
and
then the encore was Danzig 1 from front to back. That was the encore. Yeah. He came out and played a whole set. Yeah. That like career spanning from Misfits forward. Then he came out for an encore and just played the entirety of Danzig 1. Yeah. And it's just like, dude, that record for me is like, what? That was one of the first times I remember putting in a CD at the time, and a record, an album, and like listening to it from start to finish, and to this day, it's like a record that I can put on, and like
Oh yeah.
there isn't a bad song
Top to bottom.
on Danzig 1 at all. There's not a single. People shit on me for this. I feel that way about most of the Sublime albums. Like, just for music, like that 40 Ounce to Freedom record, like it's
Before it was everywhere. I mean, it was
like now again, it's like a weird thing where it's a shirt. You know what I mean? Because that guy died,
right.
Bradley Knoll died, but like
no, that shit
those
connected
albums,
with
like,
a lot of people.
like,
I mean, there's a reason
there's
why
like
it's
a
so
weird
big.
mixture of like hip hop and punk rock and ska and jazz, and it's just like this weird amalgamation where it's like, God, but now it's like, you know, God bless those guys for keeping it alive, but like, I can't go see that. It ain't the same. I don't want to see the jabroni guy that grew up listening to him and just sounds just like, it's like going to see what is it, like Foreigner, and it's just like that Asian dude singing or whatever. Like it's
oh, you mean Journey?
Yeah, Journey. Yeah. It's just like that's not the
Asian dude.
Yeah, it's like. Well, I don't even know the guy's name, but he sounds just like the old lead singer, but it's like, it's not the same, man. Like,
little less of a headache than dealing with Steve Perry, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe so. Like, I don't know, but like, just not the same. It'd be like if the Cars were still playing, even though old fucking Rick's dead,
everyone's dead.
Yeah. Everybody's dead except for the one guy, and it's like, that doesn't work. It's weird. War is a band like that. Like, I'm way into War, the band War. Like, always have been, like, heavy into War. So Lonnie, the guy that played piano originally, he has War. He never stopped playing as War. Over time, the guy's quit. Undoubtedly, probably because like you imagine, like maybe he's difficult to deal with, but like the rest of the guys that used to be in War, all the original members have a band called. The original Lowrider
It's so
band.
weird when that happens. There was like a
Great White. There's two Great Whites.
There was two LA Guns for a while.
Yep. Yeah. Stacy, wasn't it Stacy Guns, LA Guns, and those '80s guys are all like that. They all have.
A good friend of mine is the other guitar player in LA Guns.
Yeah.
Ace Vaughn Johnson. Yeah. Somehow he plays with one of my guitar heroes.
Yeah.
It's LA
wild.
Guns.
Yeah.
You can't slack them. You can't fucking take nothing away from LA Guns. They fucking rule.
Yeah, dude. All those bands from that time, they're not like that first Motley Crue record is like, we were talking about that the other day. Like, that's a fucking great record.
Yeah. It's so weird to think back too, like, and always reminding people, like, well, this was popular music. This was the biggest shit
pop
in the
music.
world.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember just like no different than Danzig. It was like at the same time, like that November Rain music. Like people don't know the music video thing either. Like, dude, Bob by NoFX was like a daily music. Like everybody at MTV, I was fucking a Much Music guy.
Yeah.
Like, give me what are these Canadians fucking with? Because Canada loves punk rock to like an extreme. In music.
Yeah.
And like, they always like, you could watch like, it would be like the gnarliest shit. You're like, what? This is like crazy. Like, they're playing Destiny's Child on MTV, and Much Music's got like Sum 41 and Good Charlotte, and then they're also throwing in Rancid and NoFX and Dropkick Murphys videos, and I miss the music video times. That was cool.
No, that was good.
It was like to have a visual with your. Yeah, people don't understand MTV. If you didn't grow up with it, you don't. Now it's just reality television. It's like a crazy thing. But for us, it was like a whole. Like if you got like 100 Kurt Loder's 120 minutes, dude. Like that was like.
Oh yeah.
Or Beavis and Butthead either. Yeah. Like I got turned on to Reverend Horton Heat from an episode of Beavis and Butthead because they were just like mocking every cool thing that they liked, you know?
Yeah.
Which is also hilarious, like that people don't get. It's like, no, they're not shitting on Ministry. Like they like Ministry. They're just they're just joshing on it to like, because that was the only way they could put that in the show is if they fucking talk shit about it.
Showcasing cool shit.
Yeah. Well, let's tell everybody.
We could probably do like 9 installments of this.
Yeah, we could do 90 fucking episodes of this. Tell everybody what the bar's Instagram is. Just Lucky Boys Casey.
Lucky Boys KCMO.
And then your fuck giving out your personal Instagram. What's your Spotify name?
My Spotify name is Keenan-Nichols.
Yes, go if you like rock and roll, follow Keenan Spotify because he curates playlists that are just incredible and will undoubtedly turn you on to something that you've never even heard of but would love to hear for sure. Like most people that talk to me about you, it always ends up they don't know you, you know what I mean? But they're like, Keenan's Spotify is amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like just Keenan is just amazing. Like have you ever conversed with the man?
Right.
Like he's only into cool shit.
Well, it's pretty interesting. The Spotify thing is like, you know, when I do go out or I go to another business or something and like my wife will just like turn around and look at me and I'll be like, she'll be like, they're playing one of your playlists, aren't they? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that they are.
Yeah.
You know,
but it's awesome.
But that's what it's about.
That's the whole thing.
I didn't write the music. I'm just fucking
Spotify.
I'd rather be on my algorithm.
Fucking
than
hire
some other
Keenan
bullshit.
to curate the classic punk playlist because whoever you got in charge of that thing, fucking sucks.
Yeah, talk to me. I've got some shit I want to get on Spotify too.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you coming over.
Appreciate
it's
you.
been fucking rad. I love you, bud.
Love you.
And we'll definitely do this again. Thanks for watching, guys.